You think you're ready for SHTF? You've got the bag, the blades, the bottled water, maybe even a few freeze-dried meals. But here's the truth. Most preppers are just cosplaying confidence. When the system fails for real, when the power cuts, the water stops, and the chaos moves and small mistakes turn lethal, you don't get a second chance. And the stuff you forgot to fix? That's what takes you down. This isn't about gear hauls or bunker tours. This is about 9 brutal mistakes that will quietly ruin you when the collapse hits, and most preppers are still making at least 3. Survival isn't a checklist. It's a war of attrition, and every dumb decision you make now is a weight you'll carry later. People love to show off their bug-out bags, their tactical gear, their 5-gallon food buckets. But ask them when they last walked 10 miles with that gear, or filtered river water in the dark, or kept their head straight during real panic, and you'll get silence. In this video, we're not sugarcoating anything. We're tearing apart the 9 most common survival mistakes that look harmless now, but will cripple you when the world flips upside down. If you've made any of these, fix them, because when SHTF, the system won't care how prepped you thought you were. Number 1. Relying too much on gear you've never tested. There's a hard truth in survival most people don't want to face. Your gear isn't going to save you, your skill with it will. And yet, dumb preppers everywhere are stockpiling thousands of dollars in shiny tools, fire starters, radios, solar chargers, multi-tools, knives, all still in the packaging. Never tested. Never used. Just sitting there like a museum exhibit waiting for the end of the world. That's not prepping, that's gambling. In collapse, nothing works like it does in the manual. Your hands will be shaking. Your fingers numb. You'll be cold, wet, hungry, and exhausted. Now try lighting a fire with that ferro rod you've never even sparked, or purifying water with that pump filter you've never assembled, or navigating with a compass you bought because it looked military. Good luck. Most survival gear requires muscle memory. It's not about knowing what it does. It's about being able to use it in the dark, under pressure, in the rain, with no second chances. That means practice, real-world use. Repetition until it's instinct. You don't rise to the level of your gear, you fall to the level of your training. So here's your move. Pull every item out of your bug-out bag, one by one, and test it. Start a fire in the wind. Purify muddy water. Sharpen your knife, then process a branch. Sleep in your tarp setup. Set your own broken bone with that trauma kit, or at least learn how. Because when SHTF, the guy who trained with a $30 knife will outlive the guy who never touched his $300 one. Prepping isn't about ownership. It's about execution under pressure. And if your first time using critical gear is during collapse, you're not prepared. You're already behind. Number 2, no physical fitness or health baseline. You've got the gear, you've got the food, maybe even a solid bug-out location. But here's the question nobody wants to ask. Can your body actually survive the collapse? Because when SHTF, it won't matter how tactical your vest looks if you can't walk 5 miles with a 30-pound pack. It won't matter how sharp your knife is if you're gasping for breath after 10 minutes of movement. And it sure won't matter how many calories you've stored if you're one injury or illness away from being dead weight. Survival is physical, period. In a real collapse, you'll be walking, lifting, climbing, carrying, building, scavenging, and doing it all without elevators, hot meals, or recovery days. And most preppers? They're woefully out of shape. Some haven't run since high school. Others think weekly range time replaces stamina, strength, or joint mobility. Here's the truth. Your body is your primary survival tool. Everything else, gear, weapons, tactics, comes second. And if it's rusted, weak, or neglected, you're the liability in any survival group. It's not about looking like an athlete. It's about function. Can you carry your bug-out bag for hours without collapsing? Can you climb a fence, lift a wounded family member, hike steep terrain, or defend yourself in a close fight? Start now. Build your baseline. Body weight movements, loaded hikes, basic cardio. Get your resting heart rate down and your recovery time up. And if you've got injuries or medical conditions, work with what you've got but stop ignoring it. No one's handing out insulin or knee braces when the hospitals are burning. You don't get to choose the day collapse hits, but you can choose to be ready for it. And if your body fails when the world does, then all that prepping was just cosplay. Number 3, keeping all your preps in one location. Here's a mistake that's quietly destroying preppers before the collapse even starts. Putting everything in one place. You've stocked food, water, meds, ammo, fuel, maybe even backup gear. It's all organized, labeled, and secured in a single room, a single garage, or a single house. Sounds efficient, right? Until one break-in, one fire, one flood, or one desperate neighbor wipes out everything in one shot. That's not prepping. That's putting all your survival on the roulette table and praying the world doesn't spin the wrong way. Real disasters don't respect your storage plans. Floodwaters don't care about your shelves. Fires don't wait for you to grab your gear. Looters don't skip the garage because they saw your YouTube channel. And if your bug-out plan involves just grabbing everything and going, you've already failed. The smarter move? Diversify your preps. Set up caches in your vehicle, in trusted friends' homes, off-grid hideouts, even buried in weatherproof containers. Split up gear categories. Keep trauma supplies near exit routes. Back up food in sealed bins off-site. Fire-starting kits in your EDC bag. Yes, it takes time. Yes, it's inconvenient. But so is starting from zero, because a single disaster erased your entire stockpile. Think like a strategist. Build layers. Build redundancy. Build fallback options. Because real collapse doesn't give you a warning shot, it hits hard, fast, and without mercy. And when it does, you want to be the guy with gear somewhere else, not the one standing in front of a burned-down house with nothing but regret. Because if your entire survival plan fits inside one building, it's not a plan, it's a tomb waiting to happen. Number 4, having a plan but not practicing it. Every prepper has a plan. Bug-out routes, rally points, escape timelines, maybe even a laminated checklist taped to the back of the pantry door. But here's the brutal truth. A plan that's never been tested is just a theory, and theories fall apart the second panic hits. You know what never survives first contact? A plan you've only walked through in your head. Collapse doesn't wait for you to reread your notes. When the grid fails, the streets lock down, or your neighborhood turns hostile, your brain won't calmly follow a to-do list. It'll freeze. Fumble. Skip steps. That's human nature under pressure unless you've drilled it. If you've never actually grabbed your go bag and walked your bug-out route on foot in real clothes, under real weight, then you don't have a plan. You have a fantasy. If your kids don't know where to meet, if phones go down, or your partner's never used the backup stove, you're not a team, you're a liability to each other. Practice reveals what checklists never will. That shortcut you planned, blocked, that gear you packed, uncomfortable. That time estimate? Double it when adrenaline and chaos hit. Here's what real preppers do. They rehearse. They run drills. They simulate failure. They treat the plan like a fire escape, not a fairy tale. And they adapt based on what goes wrong. Because once collapse starts, your plan will get punched in the mouth. What matters is what you do next. So stop feeling secure because you wrote it down. Feel secure when you've lived it, tested it, corrected it. Because when the sirens wail and the smoke rolls in, you don't want to be reading. Step 1. You want to be already moving. Number 5. Not having backup communications. When SHTF, communication is no longer a luxury, it's survival. And yet most preppers are walking around thinking, I've got a phone, I'll be fine. That's mistake number 5, and it's one of the deadliest. In a real collapse, your phone becomes a brick. Cell towers go dark, power grids fail, the internet vanishes, and without backup comms, you're cut off from everyone, family, allies, news, updates, danger zones, and safe zones. That silence? It kills more people than bullets. Now think about this. How will you know where your loved ones are? How will your group coordinate if Plan A fails? What happens when you bug out and no one knows where you are? Most preppers ignore this gap until it's too late. They stock gear, food, ammo, but their entire comms plan is built on the hope that their phone keeps working. Here's what smart preppers carry. FIRS, GMRS radios. Short range but good for neighborhoods, group movement, or convoy check-ins. Ham radios. Long range, rugged, and trusted by real emergency responders. Emergency weather radios. For getting FEMA, NOAA, or local updates even during a blackout. Signal protocols. Pre-agreed channels, times, and code words so your people know when and where to listen. Also learn the language of silence. Flashlight signals, marker codes, map notches. Hand signals. Because even comms can become liabilities if the wrong person's listening. And no, you don't need to be an operator or ham-certified expert to use this stuff. You need practice, clarity, and a basic plan. Because when the collapse rolls in, information becomes your most valuable weapon, and isolation becomes the biggest threat to your survival. So ask yourself, if the grid died tonight, would you hear anything but static? Number 6. Packing gear without prioritizing weight. This is the silent killer in almost every bug-out setup. Weight. People love to brag about how much gear they've crammed into their bags: solar panels, hatchets, cast iron pans, massive med kits, stacks of ammo, even luxury items like camping showers or full cook sets. But what they're really carrying is a slow death. In a real collapse, mobility is everything. If your pack slows you down, wears you out, or forces you to stop too often, it becomes a threat, not a lifeline. And most preppers don't realize this until they're 5 miles into a march with sweat pouring, legs shaking, and a bag that feels like concrete. Here's the truth. Gear that looks good on a gear table means nothing under fatigue, bad weather, or panic. You don't need everything. You need the essentials that work fast, weigh less, and do more. Start with the 10% rule. Your pack should never exceed 10–15% of your body weight if you plan to move fast and long. That means ruthless prioritization. If something's not pulling double duty, it doesn't belong in your bag. If you haven't trained with it, it doesn't belong either. And test it for real. Load your bag. Hike with it. Try setting up camp while exhausted. You'll quickly learn what's useful and what's dead weight. Because when it hits the fan, every extra pound drains your endurance, exposes you longer, and steals energy you can't afford to lose. Your survival doesn't depend on carrying everything. It depends on carrying the right things. And if your bag breaks you before the collapse does, then you were never going to make it out anyway. Number 7. No water plan beyond stored bottles. People love to show off their water stash cases of bottled water in the garage, blue barrels lined up in the basement, maybe even a fancy jug or two in the pantry. And while that's a decent start, here's what most preppers don't want to admit. Stored water runs out. It's heavy, it's bulky, and in a real, extended collapse, it disappears fast. You'll drink more than you think. You'll need it for cooking, cleaning, first aid, and hygiene. And once it's gone, you're done, unless you've got a way to source and purify more. That's where most people fail. They rely entirely on what's stored, not what's sustainable. Here's the brutal math. A single person needs a minimum of 1 gallon per day for survival. Multiply that by a family, add pets, add emergencies, and you're looking at dozens of gallons gone in just a week. Smart preppers don't just stock water, they build water systems, rain catchment setups, pre-scouted local sources, gravity-fed filtration, manual pumps, portable filters, boiling gear, chemical backup. Every layer matters. And yes, you need to test all of it before collapse hits. Also, location is everything. Storing water in a city apartment? You'll need collapsible containers and stealth solutions. Living rural? Set up barrels off your gutters and dig for natural sources. Suburban? Know every pool, stream, and spigot within walking range and how to filter them. Stored bottles are a delay tactic, not a solution. Because when the taps go dry and the stores are looted, it won't be food people are fighting over. It'll be water. And if you don't think beyond what's on your shelf, your collapse will come fast and dehydration. Number 8. Assuming friends and family are on board. This one's deadly and almost nobody talks about it. You've got your bug-out plan. Your gear's locked in. Your routes are mapped. You even have extras: food, meds, water, because you assumed your family would follow your lead when SHTF. But here's the gut punch truth. They won't. Most people, even the ones closest to you, are in denial. They think you're just being paranoid. They smile, nod, maybe joke about your stash of rice and radios. But when the lights go out and chaos moves in, they're not ready to move physically, mentally, or emotionally. And that's where collapse turns personal. Because now you're not just surviving, you're dragging people who never trained, never listened, and never took it seriously. You assumed they'd run when you said run, but they freeze. You assumed they'd pack bags, but they argue. You assumed they'd stay calm, but they panic, and now they're slowing you down at the worst possible moment. Collapse punishes assumptions, especially emotional ones. So here's the fix. Stop assuming, start planning. Sit them down, go through scenarios, assign roles, run drills, and if they resist, build contingencies. Set up solo protocols, stage drop points, pack individual bags and label everything. Your job isn't to force them to believe, it's to make sure you're not stuck when they still don't. Because when the time comes, some people won't move until it's too late. And if your survival depends on them being ready, you just handed your life to someone who isn't. You can carry your family, but you can't carry their disbelief. And when it's time, you'd better know who's a partner and who's a delay that might cost you everything. Number 9. Not understanding local terrain. Maps look simple: lines, roads, elevations. You think you know your area because you've driven it 1,000 times. But collapse doesn't care how well you know the streets. When SHTF and you're on foot, dodging chaos, with GPS down and highways gridlocked, your knowledge of local terrain becomes your lifeline or your death trap. Most preppers never go beyond their front yard. They assume they'll figure it out when it happens, but that assumption will get you boxed in, funneled into danger zones, or trapped in dead ends with no way out. Do you know every choke point in your city? Every creek you can cross? Every alley, trail, back road, or fence gap that avoids main roads? Have you walked your bug-out route not driving it, in gear, with weight, in weather? Because collapse doesn't follow clean paths. You'll be forced off-road, through the woods, across railroad tracks, over fences, under bridges. And if you don't know the ground beneath your feet, then you're walking blind into traps, ambushes, or natural hazards. And it's not just about routes. Terrain means resources. Do you know where wild edibles grow? Which creeks still run during droughts? Where abandoned structures might offer shelter or salvage? Prepping isn't just gear and storage, it's intelligence. Terrain knowledge is what separates you from the desperate, the lost, and the looters. So get out there, walk, scout, map, build terrain memory. Because when the map apps die and the city goes dark, local advantage becomes tactical dominance. And if you can't escape your own neighborhood without Google Maps, you're not prepping. You're waiting to get trapped. Now you know the truth. These aren't just small mistakes. They're collapse-time landmines, the kind that don't show their damage until it's too late. The kind that ruins the people who thought they were ready, just because they had a bag, a plan, or a YouTube playlist. But here's the edge: you've got now awareness. Because while everyone else is still flexing gear and posting bug-out selfies, you just took a deep dive into the stuff that actually gets people wrecked when the system snaps. And you've got two choices. Ignore this list, pretend you're immune, and roll the dice, or fix it. Rebuild smarter, and stay 10 steps ahead when the rest go blind. If this video made you uncomfortable, good. If it made you rethink your setup, even better. Because of that discomfort, that second guessing, that's the difference between the ones who survive and the ones who get filtered out in week 1. So if you're done with fake prepping, done with fantasy gear hauls, done with surface-level advice from people who've never spent a night off-grid, then this is your channel. Subscribe right now. Not for likes, not for hype, but because collapse isn't a possibility anymore, it's a timeline. And you don't rise to the level of your gear, you fall to the level of your training and your intel. Drop a comment. Which of these 9 mistakes hit you the hardest? Share this with someone in your crew who still thinks they're ready. And remember, stay quiet, stay smart, stay dangerous. I'll see you in the next one if the grid's still up.